Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this special live stream episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. For tonight, we're going to welcome back a special guest. Of course, I'm talking about Mike from episode 504. If you remember, Mike came on that episode and talked about a very traumatic encounter he had with a dogman up on Bear Mountain in Connecticut. It was, like I said, an extremely traumatic experience for him. On that episode of the show, he talked about what happened when he had that experience, and that's good. But unfortunately, since that episode aired, some very unfortunate things have happened to him. But of course, we're going to get into that tonight, and there'll be plenty of time for Mike to answer any questions you might have for him. But without any further ado, let's bring Mike on here now. Mike, thanks so much for coming back.
Thank you, Vic. I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate you giving me the chance to come back on. I know I was supposed to do it the very next week, but a lot of things have happened in my life since then and in my head since then. So it's taken me a hot minute, but again, I appreciate your patience, and I also am grateful that you brought me back on to finish this.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, as far as timing goes, when it comes to this sort of thing, it's a simple answer as far as what's the best way to handle it. And that answer is in your own good time. Like I said, I mean, it's such a traumatic experience that you had up there in Bear Mountain. I mean, there's no reason to rush anything. So like I said, in your own good time, we're just glad to have you back to answer some questions about the experience, also to get more off your chest, and it'll be another good opportunity to see all the support. I'm not sure if you've noticed all the support that people have been pouring out after that first episode aired, by the way.
Well, it actually, it took me about a month. It wasn't until about maybe 3 days ago, to be honest, that I actually went on to YouTube and I read all the comments, each and every single one of them, and there's like 300 something. So I was on there for like 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours, just reading all the comments, and I was not prepared for that at all, to be quite honest. You know, again, it took me a solid month. It's been about 1 month since, a little over a month since I first told my story, and I was just so messed up in the head, and my family life was a little bit messed up because of it, and so I had no intentions at all of even listening to myself, listening to the broadcast, or reading any comments. And it wasn't until about 3 days ago that I first found the nerve to go on and read all the comments, and I was blown away. A lot of them made me cry. A lot of them made me giggle. And mostly I felt nothing but love and support, and I felt like I wasn't alone. And although my children have made me feel that I'm not alone, just hearing this from strangers, I felt as if I was in a community that understood that, sure, what happened to me is not a singular thing, and that many, if not hundreds of people have experienced the same things that I did, and maybe even more people have experienced it and have never come forth.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so many people have encounters with these things that never come forward with the experience, and for understandable reasons. I mean, if they do come forward, as you found out yourself, there can be some serious problems that arise from that. And speaking of that, Mike, I know it's not a cheerful subject to talk about, but let's get into that now. Please tell us what you've been made to bear since that episode aired.
Well, so when I talked to you, and I told my story live stream, about 3 days later, I went back down to home to the Roanoke area in Shenandoah, and me and Midnight went back home. My wife was in RN, travel nurse, and my all three of my adult children knew immediately something was wrong with Midnight and something was wrong with Dad. And I don't want to lay my burdens on anybody. I try to help people, not give them worries or concern. And so I bottled it up and I bottled it up. But after 3 or 4 days, all three of my adult children noticed that Midnight was acting weird, Dad was acting weird, and so they finally confronted me. And these are my kids, so I sat them all down, all three of them, and they're all adults, 18, 21, and 26. And I said, okay, this is what happened to me. So I relived it again. So not only did I relive it with the park ranger who got me in touch with you, and then I relived it with you prior to the show. Then I relived it a third time on the show, and now I'm reliving it a fourth time with my children. I explained a little bit to my wife over the phone, but she's busy and she wasn't really all that interested, and it was just like, okay, I'll talk to you about it when I get home, kind of thing. And so I had to sit down with my kids, and I explained everything to them, word for word. If anything, I probably even talked longer to my kids than I did with you or anybody else. And at that point, I remember details that I didn't remember from my live broadcast with you, because I was so in the moment, and it was just so fresh in my mind that it's like a month later or even 2 weeks later, things are popping into my head like, oh, there's a description I forgot. And then like, oh, there's a part of this that I completely it slipped my mind. So it's almost like if you witness a brutal crime and you're brought in by the police and they ask you to give a statement, if it's happening, if it's that day or the day after, you're going to give a full, complete description of everything you remember. And then like 3 weeks later, you'll be like, oh my God, my brain is now remembering this thing that I completely forgot about. And, you want to call the police again and be like, hey, I know I gave you a complete statement, but there's something I forgot to tell you. And now I got to add that to the statement, kind of thing. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but that's kind of how I felt. And so all three of my children believe me 1,000%. My wife does not at all. Zero. Negative 1,000%. So my children eventually ended up calling my wife in Montana and said, hey, Midnight's messed up. Dad's messed up. We don't know why you don't believe him. We need you to come home. We need you to be here right now to help support Dad. She broke her contract. Now, mind you, she did not get fired. Her job understood. She said she had a family emergency, and so she had to break her contract and come back home. She was not happy about it, so she lost money on that. but she did not lose her job. I'm thankful for that, just because I wouldn't want anyone losing their job over me. So she lost money on it, but she didn't lose her job. And so she came back home, and I relived it one last time, and I told her face to face with my kids right there. All all five of us adults sat down, and I relived the story last time, and she just did not believe a word of it. No such thing as werewolves. No such thing as a dog man. She actually came up with her own word called coyote guy, right? Because I kept saying werewolf, and then my oldest daughter was like, "Dad, they call, I've listened to the podcast now that you told me about it. I have listened to it. They call it a dog man." I'm like, "Okay, whatever, dog man." And so my wife now makes fun of it by saying coyote guy, which for some weird reason
Oh boy.
upsets me.
Shame on her.
I agree. Like, I'm fine with Dogman. I'm still going with werewolf, which I know don't exist, but this damn thing exists. But I know that the terminology here in the United States of America is Dogman, and so that is what it is. And so she made fun of it by saying coyote guy, and it was 2 days after she got back.
Uh-oh, you cut out there. You still there, Mike?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, now we can. Yeah, right after you said 2 days after she got back, you went silent. So please restart from there.
Okay, I'm sorry. 2 days after she got back, she went to the magistrate, our local magistrate, and she filed for a legal separation. And she came back home, and she presented the legal separation papers to me, and said, "You have two choices. You can either sign these as an adult, or you could fight it, and then we have to hire lawyers and take it from there." And again, I'm a blue collar professional chef. I'm a working class man. I can't afford lawyers. I can, I don't think she can either. And so we had another lengthy talk just by ourselves about love, respect, truth, honesty, and none of that mattered. None of it mattered in her eyes. She thinks I'm crazy now. She thinks I'm on drugs, or I have some type of psychosis where my brain is missing chemicals, and I went crazy like overnight, kind of thing. That's what she's looking at me as far as a registered nurse. She thinks I went into some kind of psychopathy, and I'm now crazy. And she doesn't want that in her life. And she just says that she can't handle it. And so it was either hire a lawyer, which I can't afford as a blue collar, working class professional chef, or man up and sign the damn papers. And I asked her to give me a moment, which was roughly about like an hour. I had a couple of beers. I calmed down, smoked a cigarette, and I was like, "Okay, if you don't believe me, fine. Let's sign the papers. You don't believe me? You've been with me 26 years, right? 26 years you've been with me. Never lied to you, never hurt you, never let you down, always there for you and the kids and the grandkids. And if this is what it comes to, and you don't believe me, absolutely F the lawyers. I can man up. I'll sign these papers. So I did, and we are now legally in a court of law separated. And what I did not know is that when she actually went to the magistrate to get the legal separation papers, she also asked for divorce papers. So she has those on hand. In the state of Virginia, you have to be legally separated for 1 year before you can file for divorce. But she went ahead and got the divorce papers anyways, right then and there when she asked for the legal separation papers. So that tells me straight off the bat, that tells me that there's no reconciliation. There's no possibility of making this work out. If she's getting the divorce papers at the same time she's getting the legal separation papers, and you need a year of legal separation before you can file for divorce, that tells me that's her mind is made up, and that's it. And again, I had a long talk with all three of my adult daughters, and thanks to them, and thanks to their love and support of me, because they do believe me 1,000%. I talk to them every day on the phone because I no longer live at the house anymore. With the legal separation required by law, someone has to vacate the house, and it's up to the adults in the separation to figure that out. And I'm not going to ask my wife to leave the house. I'm not going to ask my wife to leave the grandkids and everything. I'm going to bite the bullet on that. So before the discussion even happened, I just raised my hand like some dunce fool in junior high, and I said, okay. I raised my hand. I'll take it. I'll take the bullet. I'll bite the knife. It's fine. And for about 2 weeks, I stayed at a local motel that does like a weekly rental, and it was $300 a week. So for a month, it's $1,200 for this crappy, roach-infested, nasty carpet motel room with a mini fridge and a microwave. There's not even a stove. There's no burners. There's no oven. It's just a microwave and a mini fridge in a disgusting room for $300 a week, which comes out to $1,200 a month. That is ridiculous. After 2 weeks, I said, no, I'm going to live in my car. I'm literally just going to sleep in my car and live in my car because I'll save $1,200 a month. And although I'll probably spend a lot of money eating out at fast food places and, getting ready to eat food at grocery stores and stuff like that, at least I'll save so much money comparatively than dropping $1,200 a month for this nasty, bug-ridden room. And my children are all torn up. They're all torn up about this, and they're very unhappy with their mom right now. She just signed another contract to go to Shreveport, Louisiana. She leaves in 1 week, so she won't even be there for the kids. And I've got all the love and support of my three beautiful adult girls, and all three of them told me, Dad, you need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on your happiness. And my oldest daughter actually said, you need to go out and date. Go date someone. Fall in love again. Find love and happiness again in your life, Dad. You deserve that. You're a good guy. You have integrity. You'll take a bullet for anyone. You'll take the shirt off your back. You'll take the jeans off your pants for anybody. There's plenty of women out there that would love to have you in their life and to better their life and for them to better yours. And I'm like, well, what about Mom? And my daughter's like, forget about mom. She just went and made you sign legal separation papers and then had backup divorce papers right next to it, just waiting for the year to end. She's like, Dad, like, wake up, open your eyes. Stop seeing this through a certain filter and see it through the filter of our eyes as children. You need to move on. Mom don't believe you. She never will. You're now homeless. We hate it. We think it's disgusting. There's going to be a big rift between our love for you and our love for mom. That's not your fault. That's a completely different animal. Nothing to do with you, Dad. And it was hard for me to hear all this. It was really difficult to absorb it and to come to terms with it. But on a daily basis, they're texting me and calling me, all three of my daughters, 18, 21, and 26, all telling me, focus on yourself, Dad. That's it. That's, don't worry about us. Us kids are good. Your grandkids are good. We're going to be fine. As long as you talk to us daily, we're going to be good. Focus on yourself. Go out. Find your happiness. Try to go camping again. Maybe get a puppy. Because Midnight passed away in the past month. I'll get to her burial maybe later. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm up for that. If someone asks me about it, if someone brings it up in a question, sure, I'll answer it and I'll bring it up at that point. But Midnight did pass. I think due to stress, PTSD. She wasn't the same when she came home, just like I wasn't. And I'm still not. Obviously, I'm still not normal. I'm kind of a little weird in the head because of this experience. I mean, I'm as normal as I ever was. I can still go to work. I can still do an 8-hour day. I can still talk to people like a normal person. But when I get out of work, the first thing I think about is yellow eyes and snapping, popping bone sounds and the sound of trees being ripped down as I'm running. These are the things that immediately come to my brain as soon as so when I go to work, I shut everything out. I shut my family out. I shut my experiences out, and I just focus on work as a professional chef. That's all I can do to make a paycheck. But as soon as I clock out and I leave that door and I'm walking to my car, it all comes back to me in a rush, a big rush. And it's like I immediately start having a panic attack because I immediately start hearing those snapping, popping sounds. I see that enormous head, the grotesque body, and those crashing sounds and the howls at the end, which terrified me in Midnight for the umpteenth time that night. And I'm sure that had an effect on Midnight as well. And unfortunately, Midnight passed last week. And it's like losing your best friend. It's like losing one of your soulmates,
It sure
I won't
is.
compare it to like, a parent losing their child, but Midnight was just as much a part of the family as anybody. And I know she's just a dog, and people consider dogs to be property. And if you go to a court of law, the court's like, a dog's a property. It's not a family member. It's a part of your property. It's not a living member of your family. But anyone who has a dog or a cat or any domesticated pet knows that's not true. So it was really difficult for my children. My 5-year-old grandson cried like all day long, because Midnight and my grandson were just, they were the best buds.
Like I told you in that conversation about a week ago, Mike, I'm so sorry to hear that you're going through all of this. And I'm so sorry to hear about Midnight passing, but Midnight was 15 years old. Like I told you, it doesn't make it any easier, but she was a 120-pound, 15-year-old dog. I've got no
True.
doubts, you being the type of guy you are, that she lived a life that was just beyond amazing. So, like I told you in that conversation, Midnight crossed the finish line. It was definitely a victory. Again, I'm so sorry that she passed, and you're right. Yeah, that is a family member. But this situation is so much better than you only being able to enjoy her company for 2 years and then her passing. Again, that doesn't make it easier. It's still tough as all get out. But I'm so glad, having said that, yeah, you were able to spend 15 solid, good years with her, showing her an amazing time, an amazing life. So, yeah, just like with everything else here, I really hope you can hang in there and do the best you can to work through this. Yeah, none of this is easy to deal with whatsoever. And as far as your wife goes on that side of this, like I told you in that conversation, I can appreciate the fact that when you got married to her, you had these ideas about her and how she was, and she was, like you told me, the love of your life, and there were so many good qualities to her, at least you thought. But eventually, even someone like that, who's not who you thought they were, eventually that will be known. Everything comes out in the wash. Well, unfortunately, it took you 26 years to have that come out in the wash, but eventually, yeah, apparently it did come out in the wash. Now, this doesn't make it any easier to deal with the fact that she's trying to yank the ground out from underneath you. Doesn't make it any easier at all. But just like I tell eyewitnesses to try and focus on encounters for what they really are, to cut through the chaff and look at the experiences for what they really were and not for what it's all too easy to make them out to be. Like I told you in that conversation last week, I really hope you focus on seeing your ex-wife for what she really is and not putting those rose-colored glasses on and getting all sorrowful because you think about her in ways that kind of mirror how you looked to her when you got married to her or years ago. When it boils down to it, she's not worth anything. She really isn't. And I know it doesn't seem like it right now, but she's actually doing you a favor by revealing her true self to you. Again, doesn't make all this any easier, but yeah, I mean, you know the truth now about her. So not only do I want you to focus on that encounter, the facts of the encounter that happened to you, so that you don't traumatize yourself any more than necessary by looking at it in ways that have nothing to do with reality. Like I told you last week, I want you to continue working on looking at your wife in this whole situation that she's put you through consequently. Look at her accurately, see her true colors, and focus on the fact that, yes, someone who would do what she's done to you, she's not worth wanting to have in your life. She's not worth wanting to have around at all. I mean, look at your children. They're adults, like you said. They've listened to you lay out on the table what you've been through, just like your wife did. And all of them, they're on your side. They're not on her side. And for good reason. A well-adjusted person would understand what you've been through and how difficult this has been for you and not make fun of you and talk about Coyote Man crap and all that stuff. Make fun of you the way she has. So, yeah, the remedy to this, it isn't an easy one, but it's a definite one. That is just focusing on the truth. Again, whether you're talking about your encounter or her, that's all it's going to take for you to get through this. Now, on the side of you unfortunately being homeless now, you've got an email address. Like I told you before we recorded the show, when you look at the reach of Dogman encounters, I've got no doubts that someone out there has either a room that they'd be interested in renting you so you're not homeless anymore, or maybe they own an apartment complex or an apartment building, or they own a home that they would be interested in renting to you. If there is anyone out there listening right now who owns a property that they'd be interested in renting Mike, or even a room that they'd be interested in renting Mike, there's an email address that you can contact Mike at to let him know about that, so that the two of you can be in contact so you can work this out. His email address for that would be Chef Michael Martin, the number 74 at yahoo.com. That's Chef, CHEF, Michael Martin, the number 74 at yahoo.com. Now, that would take care of the housing situation, but as far as the funds go, people have been posting a really good idea about creating a GoFundMe page. If we could create a GoFundMe to help you out, would you be interested in that?
Well, to be honest, I've never even put any thought into that. I'm very self-sufficient. I believe that you reap what you sow, and hard work gives you a good life. So I've never really, I have friends where, like their mother would get cancer, and they would have a GoFundMe to try to, because they can't afford the medical bills, or a newlywed couple that has a newborn child that has birth defects, and the child desperately needs care and attention. And just, being a newlywed couple, you're young people, and you don't make the money to be able to afford that. And they would put up a GoFundMe. And I've never been in a situation ever in my life where I've ever had to do that. I've never even, the thought never even crossed my mind. So if you're asking me, would I be okay with it? I've never been homeless. This is my first time ever in my life, and it's quite embarrassing, and I feel like less of a person. I truly, for the first time in 50 years of breathing the air on this planet, I've never felt so low, so little, so belittled, so tiny, so I feel like the biggest loser you could possibly imagine. So a part of me wants to say no, I don't want to GoFundMe, because if I can't pull myself up by my bootstraps, then I'm not worth being a human. But at the same time, I need so much help right now being homeless that I kind of want to say yes. So I don't know, Vic. I don't.
Let me throw something at you there, Mike. I can understand how you're conflicted about this, because obviously you're a prideful man and everything. So yeah, you feeling this way is totally understandable, but please don't lose sight of the fact that this is not a situation that you put yourself in. This is a situation you should have never been put in the first place. It's a situation that she put you in due to her being unreasonable as all get out. In a situation like this, that is not your fault. It's not of your doing. I mean, there is no shame whatsoever in accepting help. No shame whatsoever in accepting help. I really think you should heavily consider having a GoFundMe page opened. And for everyone listening, Mike can go back and forth on this, but please keep your eyes on the homepage of dogmanencounters.com. dogmanencounters.com. If Mike does decide to allow a GoFundMe page to be developed, created for him, right on that very first landing page of the show's website, that's where I'm going to post a link to it so you can help him and help support him. Again, Mike, please remember, If you put yourself in this situation, that'd be one thing. But like I said, you didn't do anything that made you deserving of having any of these problems. So I really hope you do heavily consider saying, you know what? Vic's right about that. There's no shame in asking for help, especially when you're placed in a dire situation due to no fault of your own. So I really hope you're going to say yes about that. It's hard. I know. It's hard. And I told you before, don't be embarrassed whatsoever. I know you're prideful. I mean, most of us are. But don't be embarrassed about crying or needing help or anything like that. You've got so much to offer. You're so strong to get to this point, even. I mean, to boot, you losing midnight on top of all this, the fact that you're still here, I mean, that says volumes about your strength. I know at times, because you might be crying about this aspect of it or that aspect of it, I know at times you're going to call into question just how strong you are. But trust me when I tell you, the strength is there. The strength is there, man. I'm telling you what, you're something else. You're awfully impressive. Don't forget that, because that's the truth.
Wow. Thank you, Vic.
Well, you're welcome. Mike, we've all needed help. Every last one of us have needed help. I've needed help more than once. And luckily, I've had great people in my life that were there to stick out a helping hand. And I mean, you don't pretty much know anyone. I don't think you know anyone who hasn't needed help at one time or another. So please don't be too prideful to accept a hand up when a hand up is exactly what's needed. So yeah, please heavily consider that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please continue.
No, I'm usually the one lending the helping hand to friends and family and loved ones. So I'm not. I've never had the reverse. I've always had my family to help me out in any situation that's ever arisen in my life. Well, prior to meeting my soon-to-be ex-wife and all that, you know, I've never needed a helping hand, and I'm always the one to extend the olive branch or to, you know, help a friend out financially or emotionally, or, you know, if even with my Bear Mountain encounter, when I first went on, my whole main purpose for that was not to get it off my chest, although I wanted to. It was to let people know, don't go up there. These things are up there, and I don't want anyone else to get hurt. I don't want anyone to die. I don't want anyone to get mauled or injured or go through what I went through. And to me, that was my sole purpose for this, especially contacting the park rangers to say, hey, you know, this is what's going on up there, and you can't, like, shut it down. Shut the Appalachian Trail down for that 3-mile stretch, at least minimal, just so you guys can do an investigation and do some searching, and maybe you'll see what I saw, or see some detective work of okay, this doesn't seem right, or that doesn't seem right. Maybe this guy's onto something. Let's be very cautious in this area. Let's put up signs. Let's do something. And that was my main concern for even going on and doing the initial live stream. But you're very smart, Vic, and you're very caring, and you're very sweet. And I'm in no position to refuse anything. So if you think if you personally, and I trust you explicitly, if you think it's in my best interest to do that, then I will. I will absolutely allow a, a GoFundMe. I don't even know how it works. I don't even know the beginnings or the ends of it. Truly, I'm clueless on that kind of stuff because I've never had to deal with it. But if you personally, Vic, think that that is something I should do, then my answer is yes. Outside of that, back to present day, I'm currently in my car. It's illegal to sleep in your car in the state of Virginia. So I'm constantly moving from like truck stop to truck stop. Right here, right now, as I'm having this interview, this live stream interview with you, I am at Big Red's, silly name, but I'm at Big Red's truck stop. And I'm way back in the corner where all the loud trucks are not really near me so much. And unfortunately, this is probably where I'm going to end up sleeping in my car tonight. And I would like to say one thing about Midnight, though. When she passed away last week, I've been terrified to go back in the woods. I really have. And living on the outskirts of Roanoke, Virginia, right there by the Shenandoah National Forest, which is like connected to the Blue Ridge Parkway and all that. I mean, it's just hundreds and hundreds of miles of wilderness, more so than Connecticut. As much of the wilderness as Connecticut was, where the part I was at Bear Mountain, that is miles and miles and miles of wilderness. But this is hundreds and hundreds of miles of wilderness, because Connecticut is a much more densely populated state compared to where I am in the Roanoke vicinity. So there's this mountain that Midnight loved to go to. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't have never even been to the summit of this mountain if it wasn't for Midnight. She led me. I think she was on a rabbit chase or a squirrel chase. I don't know, but she was just determined, and she was leading me. I wasn't leading her on this particular. We were doing a solo camp like we always do. Again, avid solo camper. And we were on a solo camp, and I kind of really didn't have. I don't like to camp where there's a campsite. I don't like doing that, because if there's a campsite and there's already a fire pit, and that means other people know about it. Maybe there's millions of people in the U.S. So at any given point, there could be some other family or some other person that could come up to this campsite, and next thing you know, I'm now sharing this area with somebody else, and that defeats the whole purpose of solo camping. So I like to pick these places that are just, miles, 20, 30 miles deep into the wilderness, into the mountains. And at this one, and this was about 10 years ago, she was just leading me. She literally was dragging me at the end of the leash, and she had a goal. She was pinpointing. I don't know what she was chasing. I don't know what she was smelling, but she knew where she wanted to go, and I was just following her because I had no idea where we were going to camp that night. And we're so from the Shenandoah Park Ranger Station to where you park your car is about 1/8 of a mile. And then as soon as you park your car, as soon as you go into the woods, I mean, you are just hundreds of miles in any direction. You're going to be alone. No houses. This is state property. This is a state sanctioned wilderness area. So there's no houses. There's no development. Nothing. It's just straight up wilderness. And so I'm letting her lead me. And we ended up climbing. I don't know why she wanted to do this, but we ended up climbing this super, super steep mountain. When I looked it up online, it came to be 3,700 feet above sea level. So way higher than Bear Mountain was only 2,380 feet. This was like 3,700 feet, like solid, no 3,700 1 foot or 2 feet. It was a solid 3,700 feet above sea level. And we get to the summit, and I'm expecting there to be like a family of rabbits or a family of squirrels. Or like, what are you so determined to get up here for? Why are we chasing whatever we're chasing? And there was nothing. There was nothing there. And she literally just sat down on her haunches and just was panting. She was just sitting there looking at me, panting, like, yeah, this is where I wanted to be the whole time. And I've never been there. She's never been there. We've never been to this summit before. I didn't even know the name of the summit until we came back down and I looked it up on GPS. And then finally I'm like, oh, that's the mountain. That's the name of the mountain I was at. Mount Crawley, Crowley. So cool. She picked Mount Crawley, 3,700 feet above sea level. And it was a beautiful view. It was gorgeous. You could see the mountain ranges all around us. Everywhere you look, panoramic view, just mountains and mountains and mountains, all the equal same level, nothing higher in the distance, nothing lower in the distance. We are literally in like the biggest group of mountains in this particular subdivision of the Shenandoahs, which is a subdivision of the Appalachians in Virginia. And so when she passed away a week ago, I took my fear of the forest and I did my best to swallow it. Again, I'm not a gun guy, so I brought 2 boot knives, 2 belt knives, 2 pocket knives, and 2 chest harness knives. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I had 8 knives on me. 2 of them were Bowie knives. And if anybody knows what a Bowie knife is, that's like 1 stab and you're dead. Well, at least for a human. So I was geared up. I don't like guns. Never been a gun guy. Only hunting I've ever done has been bow hunting. And again, like I said in the first live stream, I'm an amateur. I pretty much suck at it. So I ate my fear of the wilderness. And even though my experience happened in New England on Bear Mountain in Connecticut, it's like, you know, the Shenandoah Mountains are a far more extensive wilderness than the Bear Mountain wilderness. So if they're up there, I'm pretty damn sure they're down here as well. They have to be, especially when the park ranger told me that she is in contact with fellow park rangers from all across the country, all across other national forests on a weekly to monthly basis, and they all talk about these things. So yeah, I'm in the Shenandoah National Forest. So that's one of those parks that I'm sure she knows a ranger that she communicates with on a weekly or monthly basis. So I ate my fear. What I did was I had Midnight's ashes. I had it cremated, which cost me a pretty penny. I had her cremated, and um, I I had I had nothing to put her in, so I asked the services, do you have anything like really pretty, something beautiful for a female dog? And they presented me a lacquered uh, oak a lacquered oak box that they would put her in, and they would put like a stainless steel plaque on the front with her name on it. And I said, "That's beautiful. Let's go with that." And so once she was cremated, they had her placed into the box. Um, so I took the box with me in a backpack. It was a it was my last it was my last hiking trip with Midnight, and I brought her up to Mount Crawley, that one damn mountain that she was so determined to get to the summit of, for reasons I still have no idea. Swear to this day I thought she was chasing something, but nope. When she got to the summit, she just sat on her haunches and just had her tongue lolling off the side of her mouth, just panting like, "Hey, we're here." And I'm like, "Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Midnight." And so it was our last hike together. Unfortunately, she was in my backpack and not beside me. And when we got to the summit, I took my grandpa's military shovel, and I started digging. And I was digging and digging and digging. I think I dug a decent sized hole, about 4 feet, roughly about 4 feet down, and I put her in it. But before I put the box in there, though, I wrapped the box in a garbage bag just to protect it from weathering and from uh, rainwater seeping into the soil. I also included about 20 pictures of me and her together that I've had taken of us, or that I've taken of us, selfies and this and that and the other. Some are Polaroids, some I just uploaded online and then printed out. So I had about 20 photos of me and Midnight together on all of our different excursions and adventures, solo camping, and I put those into the bag as well. And I also wrote a note saying, "Hey, whoever finds this 100, 200, 3,000 years from now, whenever, I mean this as a time capsule. I want this to be a time capsule. If anybody, for whatever reason, comes to the summit of Mount Crawley, 3,700 feet, and decides to put a tower up here, or level the mountain off for whatever reason, for development, this, that, and the other. I don't know. It's a national forest. I don't really see that happening. But for whatever reason, if anybody ever dug up that particular section of the summit of Mount Crawley and they found this bag with her urn in it, in these photos, in a letter, I just wanted them to know, like I wanted it to be like a time capsule, like you do when you're in elementary school. Like the teacher has everyone put something into a container, or some drawings, or a spaghetti necklace, or like whatever, a toy. Like put your things that represent you into this container. We're gonna bury it, and then 50 to 100 years from now, the classmates will come out, they'll open it, and then we can all like look at what happened 50 to 100 years ago. So I kind of wanted that to be what I was trying to do. And I mean, 6,000, 10,000 years might go by before anybody discovers this, because it is literally on the summit of a 3,700-foot mountain in the middle of the Shenandoah National Park, which you cannot develop on this area at all. At the very most, if they want to put a tower for internet or communication, that I could see. I could see the park allowing that because it doesn't really disturb the natural forest or the inhabitants or the animals or the waterworks, or it doesn't disturb the ecology. But I just thought it would be special for her because that was her place. She brought me there on her own volition, on her own instinct, and I couldn't think of any better way to respect her and love her than to bury her with about 20 photos of me and her happy together in our 15 years. And then I wrote a letter describing who she was, how much she weighed, how good of a dog she was, what breed of a dog she was. And at the very end, I said, if anybody ever digs this up, bring this to City Hall, please. And maybe Midnight will get her own little plaque at City Hall. 200 years, so I buried her in 2024. If someone finds this in 2124, 100 years later, maybe City Hall, they'll bring it to City Hall and be like, this guy cared so much about his damn dog that he went through all this trouble. Let's go ahead and make a plaque for Midnight. And then maybe they'll hang the photos up and they'll have my little letter there and everybody can read it and appreciate it. And maybe they'll appreciate the Shenandoah Mountains a little bit more as well. Maybe they'll give the mountains a little bit more of a homey feeling or a little bit more of a sentimental feeling. And that is what's happened to me in a nutshell over the past month. I'm sorry, but I'm like, I got snot running down my nose and I got tears running down my face. I'm a mess right now.
No, don't apologize for that. That's expected. Like I said, yeah, don't even think about apologizing for it. Well, I've got to tell you, after all the stress that you're going through right now, for you to be able to give Midnight that good of a send-off, that's really impressive. She was a special dog, but she obviously had quite the special owner. Please never forget that. And I want to put it out there. Not only am I going to put a link for the GoFundMe page for you on the homepage of dogmanencounters.com, Mike. For anyone listening who'd like to contribute to the GoFundMe page we're going to have that up and running in at the most a day or two. If you go to the description for tonight's show, you'll find a link to that GoFundMe page as well. I'm not sure how far into the future it's going to be there on the homepage for Dogman Encounters. I'm not sure how long Mike's going to need help with this. But yeah, I mean, if you go to the description for tonight's show, that's always going to be there. There's always going to be a link to his GoFundMe page for as long as it's active. So that'll make it really easy to find that way. Really easy. Well, I'm not sure if you can see the comments that are being left here in the live chat, Mike, but you've got tons and tons of support. There's so many people behind you. Speaking of help and people wanting to help you out with this horrible situation that you've been put in, again, by your wife, you told me before we started recording that you're open. Being a chef, you're open to traveling. If someone in a particular place had a room or maybe a house they would rent you, or maybe they have an apartment unit that they'd be interested in renting you, you told me that you're up for traveling. How far would you be willing to go, though, if someone did have a place to offer you to stay?
Well, anywhere. For 10 years of my life, I used to be a travel chef. Just same concept as my soon-to-be ex-wife as a travel nurse. I actually met her as a travel chef while she was a travel nurse. And so I've been all over the country. I've been from California all along up and down the western coast, to the middle of the country, to the southwest, to Minnesota, New England, all the way down to the deep South. I, I've worked all over the country as a travel chef. I don't do that gig anymore uh, because once I had kids, you really someone needs to be home. And although my soon-to-be ex-wife continued doing that, I'm not going to yell at her. I'm not going to like, if that's your passion, if that's what you want to do in life, I'm not going to I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. I got the kids. I got this. You go do your thing. I'll stop being a travel chef. I'll be a stay-at-home chef. I'll just work a job locally in town. So as far as where am I willing to travel at this point in my life, and I'm basing this off of the advice of all three of my adult daughters, they just want me to focus on myself, to be happy, and being that I'm 50, and I mean, I hope I live forever, but let's face it, you know, if I was to live to 100, I would be middle aged right now. And not too many people live to be 100. Most people go around 70 or 80. So I'm past midlife. I don't know. Hopefully I have a long life ahead of me, but all my kids want from me is to focus on myself and to live a happy life. Hopefully maybe meet that forever person, fall in love again, and like literally just live a genuinely healthy, happy life. And if I got to drive across the country to do it, I have no problem. I'm a professional chef. Everybody needs to eat. There's a job waiting for me in any city, in any town, in any state. It doesn't matter where I go. It could be the smallest town on the planet. As long as they have a restaurant, I can get hired and I will have a job. I can pay my rent. I can pay my gas. I can pay my utilities. I can pay the bills I have. That that's never been a stress issue for me as a professional chef. No matter where I go, I can always land a job because everybody needs to eat and everybody loves eating. And with my extensive amount of experience and skill level, advanced skill level, I can work the high end restaurants all the way down to the low end restaurants. It does not matter. A paycheck's a paycheck. Again, I'm very blue collar. I'm a working man. That's all I care about. Pay the bills, make my significant other happy, and make my landlords happy. That's really all that matters. And you notice I didn't say make myself happy. I'm always the last one. Like I always think of me being the last person happy, and my kids get on me about that constantly. Like, Dad, you need to put yourself first. You deserve it. You've earned it. You need to put yourself first. But I've never been that type of guy. It's always like I want everyone else to be happy first, and then maybe everyone's collective happiness will like trickle down onto me, and then I can enjoy the happiness of everyone else being happy. But they're like, it doesn't work like that. Maybe it worked like that when you were young, because apparently I'm as old as dirt, and apparently it might have worked that way when I was young. My kids say. But nowadays, it doesn't work like that. And if you want your happiness, you have to go and you have to get it. But really, I'm willing to travel anywhere in the country as long as you're a good landlord or a good person or a good friend, anyone who's willing to understand what I've been through, understand what I am currently going through as I tell this story, and knowing that I'm a good man.
Uh-oh, you cut out again. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here, Vic.
Okay, good.
But that's yes. So the answer is yes. I'm willing to travel anywhere for a good landlord, for a good person, male or female, doesn't matter to me. I'm who knows? We might end up being best friends. We might end up being significant others. I have no idea. You never know. And this is what my adult children keep telling me because I'm not used to this stuff. You never know what life is going to throw at you until you go out there and give it a try, experience it. Like take a chance. Like get out of your bubble, get out of your safe zone, find a good place to live, find a good landlord. You might meet your best friend, you might meet your future wife. You never know. And of course, these are not the things that are on my mind, but these are things that all three of my daughters, who I trust and love and respect, are telling me simultaneously. And if I don't listen to them, I'm the dumbest dad on the planet. I would have to be the dumbest dad on the planet to not listen to these three intelligent, very well-rounded, beautiful adults. So yeah, there's I'll go wherever as long as they're good people.
That definitely does help. Yeah, being a chef, like you said, that helps tremendously. Being able to live anywhere and still be able to make a living. And for the people listening to this show, like I said, if you do have a place that you'd be interested in allowing Mike to rent, the email address you can reach him at to let him know so you can work out the fine details would be Chef Michael Martin. This is all spelled conventionally. Chef Michael Martin, the number 74 at yahoo.com. And I'm going to put that email address in the description for tonight's show as well. That'll make it real easy to find that as well. But now that we've put that out there, Mike, I've got some questions that the listeners are posting that they want me to ask you. The first question would be from Vanessa. And Vanessa wants to know, do you think the encounter had anything to do with Midnight's passing?
Oh, wow. I actually thought about this. Uh, the very night that midnight passed, I actually thought about that because if you remember in my initial encounter when we were talking, I kept hearing this voice in my head. Death, 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 death. And I attributed it to me. I thought that was me. I thought in my head, I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, death, 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 death. But at the same time, like I mentioned in the first live stream, I don't think it was me, but again, I'm not gonna say I think this thing was telepathically talking to me, like that episode with the military guy and his sergeant top and all that. I'm not even going there because I just not even sure that telepathy is even something humans can interact with. But why that came into my head at that moment that I'm peeing myself and I'm frozen in sheer terror, I don't know why, but it was there and I remember it vividly. Death, 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 death. So I don't know. That's a good question. Was the Dogman referring to midnight passing only a month after? I don't. That's a very good question. I don't know if I can answer that accurately, but that is something I thought about. It did come to my mind as soon as she passed. I was like, oh my God, it's a month later, and death, 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 death running through my head. That popped in. That is something I absolutely did think about when midnight passed.
That sure is awfully eerie. It really does make you wonder what that was all about. But of course, we can wonder until we're blue in the face and never know. It's just one of those things. Awfully strange. The next question is from Sepster67. And his question is, Mike, I recall your encounter that you stated. Oh, I'm sorry, it says, Mike, I recall in your encounter that you stated you were an atheist. I'm curious, since you did not realize these things existed, and now they do, have you considered the possibility that God exists?
Absolutely not. If anything, it convinces me more that God does not. If there was a kind, gentle God, first of all, there are millions of innocent children that die every day from starvation, from disease, and from war. Innocent children, babies, dying from starvation, disease, and war all across the world by the millions, not thousands, but by the millions. If there was a God and he allowed that to happen, that's no God that I would ever want to worship. And if there was a God and he created these creatures that I encountered, again, that is no God that I would ever want to worship. So no, it did not bring me closer to religion. It brought me closer to atheism.
The next question is from Sarah Lays, and her question is, do you think you'll go solo camping again?
Well, thank you for the question. That is a good one, and I contemplated that my whole drive down from Connecticut back home, and even after I got home, on a daily basis, when I went back to work, I shut myself off, and then as soon as I get out of work, I think about it again, and I question myself. That's a love of mine, and I've been doing it with midnight for 15 years. So if I do it again, okay, so with midnight, it's solo camping in the sense that I'm the only human being, but with midnight there, it really wasn't solo camping because I had my best friend, I had my buddy. So without her, it truly would be solo camping, and I've contemplated that, and it took a lot of nerve to go back into the wilderness to climb up Mount Crawley to that mountaintop that she brought me up to for whatever reason. I still have no idea why, but that was her mountain. That literally, that was her mountain. She peed on a tree and marked it and everything. So that gave me some peace of mind that I wasn't accosted, I wasn't attacked, I heard no howls, there was nothing out of the ordinary, I didn't get any weird, creepy feelings. So that did give me a sense that yes, maybe I can eventually, not right now for sure, but yes, I to answer the question, I do think that yes, again, I will with the right person, the right friend, the right lover, the right animal. I do think that I would be able to go back in and continue to solo camp. Yes, I do.
That's great. Yeah, I'm sure in time you will start doing that. And yeah, this isn't the end. It's far from the end. I'm glad that you're not going to give up. You're going to focus on trying to continue to live your life in your own good time, that is. But yeah, definitely don't give up. That would be a travesty if you did. And I'm so impressed you had the moxie to be able to head up that mountain to bury midnight the way you did. Most people couldn't have done that.
I was scared. I won't deny it, Vic. I was terrified to even go into the wilderness alone, because even with midnight, I felt like I had a protector. She always protected me, and she was always like, like if something bad happened, she was the one to protect me more so than me protecting her. And so going up there without her, that was rough, man. That was rough, and with my emotional state, and yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't easy at all. Like I said, most people couldn't have done that. You've got sand. You definitely do. The next question's from Baby Girl, and she wants to know if you've ever seen werewolf movies that have a werewolf that you would compare to that Dogman that you saw.
Oh, several. Okay. There are several uh, A-list movies or even B movies where the werewolves were comparable to what I saw. I'd say the one that sticks out the most saw on the other side of that lean-to when it stood up after the popping and snapping and grinding noises of its joints and bones when it stood up at its full height. I would say the werewolf movie that I would compare it to the most would be the original 1980s Howling. The original Howling, not Howling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, there's like probably 20 of them now. But the original Howling from the 80s, that was what I saw, because the head was so enormous. The maw on this thing was so gigantic. Again, it could literally just chomp down on my head and just rip it off and swallow it. It was that large. When I say massive head, I mean massive damn head. And its body was just, I mean, everyone talks about Sasquatch being 8, 9 feet tall and broad and muscular. I mean, this thing probably could have taken a Sasquatch out without too much trouble. Maybe the Sasquatch could have given it a bit of a struggle, but I mean, this thing probably would have taken a full-grown adult male Sasquatch out. That's the only way I could describe how viciously brutal the composition of its body was. And I would relay that to the very first Howling movie, but there's others like Dog Soldiers. It looked comparatively like some of them on the movie Dog Soldiers. When it was on all fours, when it first cleared the brush, it looked like the werewolf from An American Werewolf in London, in the scene where it's running through the streets of London on all fours. It looked very, very much like that when it was on fours. But when it stood up, it looked more like the werewolf from the original Howling. I hope that helps. I hope that's a good description.
Sure sounds like a good description to me. So, no, I think you did well describing it. The next question is from Sepster67. He wants to know, Mike, what are some details that you remembered after the first interview?
Right, and there's a few. So, its eyes. Now, mind you, it had these yellow eyes that were like, again, the only way I can describe them is like a crayon box yellow eyes, straight up from a crayon box. Like, when you're 7 years old and you're in elementary school and you get your first box of 24 crayons, it's the yellow. The eyes look just like that. But what I do remember is that it's the I don't know what you call that part of the eye, but the pupil, I guess, the black part of the eye, it was almost like a starburst. It wasn't like a cat's eye where they're a vertical slit. Nothing like that. Throw that to the wayside. Nothing even remotely like that. It was more like a asymmetrical starburst. Like, imagine an exploding sun and all these different tendrils are coming out of the center of the sun, but yet it's asymmetrical. It's not symmetrical whatsoever. That is something I noticed. Again, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this particular interview, there are several things that when I got back home that I remembered that I wasn't able to put onto the initial show. And I'm glad that that person asked that question, because that is absolutely 100% one of the things I remember is when I was staring at it. Because mind you, when it had me in that sheer terror grip where I could not move, like the Medusa, I mentioned the ancient Greek Gorgon Medusa, when it had me in that Medusa grip where I was turned to stone and I could not move no matter how terrified I was, I could only look at its eyes, and it looked into my eyes. And we literally had a moment of just where I was wetting myself and this thing was enjoying itself. And what I remember and what I recall were a black pupil that reminded me of like a asymmetrical starburst. And as crazy as that sounds, go ahead, make fun of me. That's on you. But that's what I recalled, and that's what I remember. And it's one of the things that truly scare the crap out of me to this day.
And understandably so. And that's just about the best description of a dogman's eye I think I've ever heard. Yeah, by a long shot. That's a really good description. Well, I've got another question for you, Mike, from Louis Franco. And Louis wants to know, have you been experiencing any nightmares?
Absolutely. Every night. I don't know if you want to call them night terrors. I know what night terrors are. I've watched documentaries on night terrors, and some people are frozen in bed. They see things that people don't believe. Some people see ghosts. Some people see shadow people. Some people see aliens, and they can't move. They're frozen solid, just like I was on Bear Mountain. I could not move. Sheer terror. Whatever this thing was doing with its eyes locked me right then and there. If it would have let go of its grip on me.
Uh-oh, we lost you again. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Night terrors. I've had nightmares. I don't know if I've had night terrors, because I've never woken up frozen where I can't move. But I've had many nightmares on a nightly basis. I had one last night, the night before, the night before that, the night before that, the night before that, the night before that. Week after, for the past month, every single night I go to bed, I have a nightmare about this encounter. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I have to self-medicate myself before I go to sleep so that I don't dream, or I don't dream as vividly. In my experience, if you drink alcohol, you don't really dream as much, or you don't. If you do, you don't remember it the next morning. And if you do have a nightmare, you don't really remember it so much the next morning if you've had some drinks the night before. And I hate to say this because it's not me. This is not how I am. I do enjoy cocktails when I'm hanging out with friends socially, like everybody else, like every other blue collar working person on the planet. We all enjoy getting together with our friends and loved ones and letting loose and having some drinks and having fun. But I'm doing this solo. I'm doing this alone in my car, homeless. And it's terrible. I hate it. It makes me feel disgusting. It makes me feel like a loser. It makes me feel like I'm less than nothing. But if I don't have a few drinks before I go to sleep in my car, I will wake up in the middle of the night in my car, yelling and screaming, asking if midnight's all right. And then I wake up and I look at my seat and it's empty, and I realize midnight's dead. And I don't like having I don't like waking up having thoughts about stuff like that. So to answer his question, I'm sorry it was so elaborated, but yeah, not a night has gone by in the past month that I have not had a nightmare about this encounter. Absolutely.
That doesn't come as a surprise at all. After what you've been through and what you're going through, I mean, what you're going through right now is just amplifying your experience with the Dogmen. So, yeah, that's just not helping at all. But everything that you're going through is totally expected. It's not good, but it's totally expected. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Mike. But before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to put out there for us?
Um, I just want to say to everybody listening that if you know anyone in the northwestern Connecticut area, or if you are personally from northwestern Connecticut, stay away from Bear Mountain. I know it's beautiful and it's gorgeous, but there's other mountains in the surrounding area. And I mean, well, hell, that probably doesn't help at all, because if they're on Bear Mountain, they can easily travel 6, 7 miles to the next mountain next to it. So I don't know. I guess that probably doesn't help. I guess just be careful, be aware of your surroundings. Um, Always bring somebody with you. Um, if you're a hunter, bring a gun for self-defense. If you're not a hunter, please bring a crap ton of knives or something. Just not that it's going to do you any good, but at least you can say you went out like a warrior. You know, like you're going to get ripped to shreds and you're not going to survive it. But at least you can say, I had weapons on me. I went out like a warrior, for whatever that's worth. And also to the people that aren't in Connecticut, to all the people across the 50 states that are listening, I'm terrified. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be the same person, but I hope that I will be. And if anyone out there listening has gone through anything like this and you've never told anybody, but you're just sitting there listening, saying, oh my God, that sounds exactly what Michael said, sounds exactly like what I went through, or those eyes are perfect, perfect example of what I saw, or the the sounds of the bones and joints breaking and snapping is exactly what I heard. Please contact Vic. If you need to talk to somebody, Vic will have you reach out to me. I am Vic did that to me with another person named Cody, and he's helped me a lot. And I am now very good friends with Cody, and we talk about once a week just to say hi, just to catch up on each other. And if anyone needs any kind of support like that whatsoever, again, I tend to help people more than I help myself. I tend to give more than I get. And that's just the nature of who I am.
Oh no, you cut out right after you said, and that's the nature. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes. That's the nature of who I am. I tend to give more than I receive. And if anybody needs any help, please first go to Vic. And then secondly, if you feel that you need to talk to me personally, I want everyone listening right now to understand I will do whatever it takes outside of my work schedule to talk to you, listen to you, text you, whatever you need to help you the way that Vic has helped me and is currently helping me, and the way that my friend Cody, who Vic turned me on to, is also currently helping me. And I hope that this can be a trickle down effect where if we can all just get together and help each other, whether it's just relating your, even if you don't want to talk to Vic and give your story live, if you just want someone to talk to, I'm willing. Vic will throw you my information. You could talk to me. If you don't want to do it live for everyone to hear, cool. I get that. I was worried about that too. But I'm more than willing to listen to you and talk to you and help you through whatever it is that is messing you up in the head or messing you up in your heart or emotionally. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for all the. I cannot see any comments right now. The way my phone is set up, I'm gonna have to wait until the episode is over, and then maybe tomorrow I can go on and read the comments of tonight's episodes. But the initial first episode from a month ago, I want to say thank you to everybody who said such sweet, beautiful things. There were people that said things I related to. I mean, like, I'm like, oh, can I come live with you? You know, like, oh my God, like you actually believe me and you are on the same page I'm on. Hell, if only I knew how to get in touch with you, I would so be your roommate and we would live happy friends together. Like there's so many of those instances where I'm reading the comments and I'm blown away and it makes me cry and I'm torn up at the same time. I'm bipolar balancing happiness and sadness and fear, and you've all been so supportive and beautiful people, beautiful human beings. Even the religious people who try to continuously shove Jesus down my throat. I love you all. It's all cool. Keep doing what you're doing. That's your thing. I'm not going to stop you from it. And, you're good people too. And thank you for your support as well. And Vic, mostly, I want to give the most of my appreciation and gratitude to you, because if it wasn't for you, I would probably be in an insane asylum in a rubber room with a straitjacket on right now. And you've given me more help than anyone I've talked to besides my children. And you're a lifesaver, Vic. And thank you for answering my texts when I need help. Thank you for giving me a call back the other day when I really needed to talk to you. And, you took 20 minutes out of your time and, you're like, Michael, you're talking hysterically. Don't interrupt me. Just let me talk. And everything's going to be all right. And I listened to you, and I did. And you really did help me out through that day. You really got me through that day. And to me, that means more to me than a bar of gold. That means more to me than sunshine and clean air. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. The biggest takeaway I want you to never lose sight of is the fact that you're never going to be alone again. Never are you ever going to be in a place where you don't have anyone that you can reach out and talk with about this. So, yeah, if you ever do need help from me, then by all means, please let me know. If you lose Cody's contact info sometime down the road, just let me know, and I'd be more than happy to put you back into contact with him as well. And Cody, if you're listening, I can't thank you enough for helping Mike the way you have. I mean, you've got no clue how much you've helped this man, and I can't thank you enough for that. I really can't. But
yeah, thank you, Cody. Thank you.
Definitely. He's a really good man, like I said. But having said that, if you've had a Dogman encounter and you'd like to speak with me about your encounter, there's no requirement ever to come on the show and put it out there for the public's ear. You can always just contact me and we can have a private conversation about it. I can find out what's ailing you, and I'll just do the best I can to help you. But yes, there's no pressure ever to come on the show, like I said earlier. If you want to do a show, then of course we can, but just understand, like I said, there's never any pressure to do that. But having said that, thanks again so much for coming back on to answer these questions and update us on what you're going through, Mike. I really do appreciate that. And for all the listeners, thanks as always so much for your support, for supporting Mike and the other eyewitnesses so much the way you do. I can't thank you enough. And of course, I wish everyone a great night. So thanks again so much, and take care.